Welcome to Marcos and James, the Lisbon Pirates podcast. Good afternoon, Tiago. How are you?
Good afternoon. I'm fine. I never know the right way to answer the how are you question
Oh,
because
yeah?
in a way we say I'm fine, but I never feel completely secure if this is a reasonable answer. I'm
It's a
fine.
great answer. I'm fine. Yeah. I mean, it's not a deep answer, but
Definitely
but then
it's not.
again, I think in both of our cultures, sometimes when somebody asks, "How are you?" they're not really looking for a
Yeah,
complete,
yeah,
full answer.
yeah.
I think maybe we should change that. Maybe we should respond really truthfully, right? And tell
Yeah,
everybody exactly how we're
but
doing.
that then things would get a little bit
It
complicated
would.
probably,
It would.
and mostly with a Portuguese guy.
You think? When somebody asks how are you in Portuguese, it usually is I'm fine, right?
Yeah, tudo bem.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's the same
It's the
thing.
same. They're
Yeah,
not
it's the
looking
same thing.
for anything beyond that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And how are you, Mark?
I'm doing good, thanks.
Marcos.
I'm fine.
How was your week? Did you travel to any place during the
Let's
last week?
see. This week, no,
Yeah.
no. Last week was Barcelona.
Yeah.
This week I stayed in Lisbon, so it's good.
Can you explain a little bit why do you have to travel so much?
Yeah, and one of the I think the privileges of being here as a missionary in Portugal is that I'm also the leader for Spain and Portugal for our mission, and so um, one of the privileges is I get to visit and work with a lot of our teams in Spain and Portugal, and so being able to just go and visit people and spend time with them, walk the streets with them, talk about what they're facing, the difficulties, the joys. That's a really incredible thing that I get to do. And so it does mean a little bit more travel for me. And I think one of the best things is when I can travel with Hannah, my
Yes.
wife, or the kids. But sometimes I do have to go by myself as well.
And so, as we speak, you already, what countries do you already visited since you are here in Europe?
Oh, goodness.
How many countries?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not as many as you think. Because one of the things since coming to Portugal that we've tried to do is stay in Portugal. I know it sounds a little funny, but living here in Europe, we realize it's amazing. What a privilege to be able to live in Europe and visit different countries. And a lot of times we'll have meetings, and so we'll be able to visit Czech Republic or Germany or England or Italy. But one of the things that I think really got impressed upon us was the need for us to stay here locally and to really plant our lives in this community and to see God work here among our city, in our city.
Because right now, Portugal is the place where you feel at home.
Absolutely.
It's your home.
Yeah, this is our home.
Yeah.
And me and Hannah were actually talking about this the other day of the years that we've been married, and we're going to, I almost said it very Portuguese, we're going to make years, which is totally, do you see how this is my problem now? I think in Portuguese.
Make years, yeah.
So we're going to make, no, we're going to celebrate 18 years of marriage this July. And so, of course, we were talking about that. And we realized that of our married life, we've spent now more time here in Portugal than in other place. And that's actually, that's significant.
Yes. For me, as a Portuguese guy, Portugal, in a way, it's all I know. So I don't know how it is to live in another culture, and so every time I've been in other places, I go there as a tourist. I don't know how it is to. You have to change a lot, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's one of the interesting things about coming and living in a culture instead of visiting. Visiting, you can appreciate what a different city is like or a different country, but you never have to do the very difficult work of adapting and learning how to navigate that culture. And so one of the things that when we moved here, we realized very quickly is that we had to give up our rights and privileges of being who we are from a different culture and start to adapt and learn really from ground zero, learn all over again what it's like to live and talk and speak and understand. And that's almost a beautiful thing. I think maybe in some small, very tiny way, I understand what Jesus did in a very tiny way, not fully or not completely, because he was able to do that completely. there's always going to be limitations to the way that we adapt and come into a new culture.
Yes, yeah, I never thought about that because, yes, it's true. Because you're getting inside a new culture, you're never completely a part of that culture, but you are becoming a part of that. And so, what were the worst days that you can remember trying to fit in Portugal and not being able to at least to feel that you were fitting in?
And there were frustrating days in the beginning, and I think part of that was when we came to live here, we all of a sudden were at the beginning, and so in terms of language and culture, and so when you can't speak a language and you don't understand what's happening in a culture, it creates a lot of frustration because, and this is the thing we always love to say, is that in our own culture we're pretty smart people, but here sometimes the way that we have to communicate or learn the language and such, and knowing that we, even now, almost a decade later, when we communicate, it's not perfect. And so there's still a difficulty sometimes. But some of the worst days were when we failed to communicate, and then the culture we weren't understanding what was going on. So for instance, here's a great example. Taking our girls to school when it was a holiday. It happened.
It happened.
Yes, that did happen. And nobody told us, because in this culture everybody knows that it's a holiday, and so why would you need to say don't come to school tomorrow? And so we got the girls ready and went down to the school, and it's closed. And then you feel like an absolute fool.
And that's funny, because when we are recording and this goes live, you press the button and suddenly we are just recording this. But I think this is a very small but very useful way of God sanctifying me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because yes, I'm trying here to talk in a language that it's not my language. Of course, I grew up listening movies and reading also in English, but we have to endure sounding silly or making mistakes, and we need this so much. I would say that for everyone's sanctification, go and spend some time of the day speaking in another language. It can be a very useful thing to do.
Yeah, very painful, but very good.
And one of the good things that even last Sunday, Mark was how would you say, you were leading the family aconselhamento familiar. How would you translate?
I guess you would say maybe like a counseling hour that we do, or a family counseling.
And sometimes you would complain about the Portuguese verbs. And when that happens, I believe it remembers me that although you are having a hard time with verbs, with Portuguese verbs, in a way we are all in the same situation, because we are all speaking a language that it's not completely our language. We were made to another language.
Yeah, absolutely.
And this is one of the threads going through all the Bible. We are learning to speak a new language. And this is what the Lisbon Pirates is all about.
That's right.
Also.
And I love that idea of looking forward to eternity, where it won't be difficult to communicate in that sense. To communicate with each other, with different backgrounds and races, and all of that will be made simple and easy because of Jesus, because of what he's done. So,
and I believe this right now in the West, it's a beautiful paradox about being a Christian, because in a way we Christians really believe in words. We really believe in words to the point that God's Son was a word incarnate.
Right. Exactly.
But in another sense, we know that words are still lacking. We are still lacking in terms of our ability to express ourselves. And so as Christians, we know these two realities.
I always think that when we try to communicate what the gospel is with people who aren't believers, I'm struck by the fact that we'll never be able to explain it perfectly.
Yes.
But isn't that somewhat beautiful that even with our difficulty or our limitations, that God can still
Yes.
present himself in a way that people can come to faith?
Yes.
It's incredible.
And that's what the scriptures say when the Bible says that God uses, I'm thinking that passage in Portuguese, but uses human vessels, so fragile. But although we as people are fragile, God can use us, and He uses us.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So we have a topic for today.
Yes.
And I think it's a great one. We're a little bit behind everybody because I think this is just, people have been talking about it, the last couple of days, and it's been kind of a big thing here in Portugal. And it's Eurovision.
And it all over Europe, because I checked it on YouTube and some video clips of the subject we are going to talk about. Man, more than a million visualizations.
Views. Yeah.
So it's all over Europe.
Yeah. So it's massive. So this past Saturday, of course, Portugal, for the first time in Eurovision history, we won. We won.
Mark, you have to understand, this is really hard for us Portuguese.
It is.
We are not used to win.
Yes.
And suddenly, probably because God has a sense of humor, we won the Euro Cup.
That's right.
Salvador Sobral won the Eurovision. We are getting in trouble for sure, because for sure something bad is going to happen.
Oh, see, okay, this is interesting. Is this part of the Portuguese thought process?
Probably, I don't know. But because we are not used to winning,
right,
we are afraid of winning. And I don't know. I want
to explore this.
Yeah. But it looks strange when we win.
Right.
I, from the bottom of my heart, I think this is one of the great things about my culture, about being Portuguese. Because we are not used to win, we can still keep some kind of strangeness about victories.
Interesting.
Which can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Can be.
Do you think that naturally keeps you humble in regards to victory? That you wouldn't be so proud that you would just think, oh, this is natural. This is just who we are. And is there a certain humility that comes with a win? If
we are looking for the upside, it can keep us humble, and in that sense, I would say that's good.
Is it because nobody expects it?
Yes.
Maybe the expectation isn't so high.
Yes. Generally, we don't go expecting to come out of things with a victory. We don't go in that kind of mood.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things that we've noticed here in this culture is that, like last year when the Euro Cup started in France, the first thing we said was, we're going to win everything. Portugal's going to win the whole thing. And all of my friends just laughed.
Yes.
And they said,
yes, we don't go expecting that. But on the downside, I would say, I would just remember something that I believe Jacinto told us when Jacinto Lucas Pires was with us 2-3 weeks ago. On the downside, we kind of, because we don't expect to win, that brings out some hope and just some will to try. Yeah. We should try more, and we don't try that often.
Right. Would you say that typically Portugal is the underdog?
Yes, because you are not expecting for the underdog to win. But I would say that I love the idea of being an underdog. But I would say that generally underdogs work hard, and I'm not sure that we work so hard. But thinking about Salvador Sobral, everything everything around the narrative is great.
Yeah.
Everything is great.
It's great
because the simplicity involved in in the tune, and even the quirky way. I don't know.
That's right. Quirky way.
That guy uses to express himself. Yeah, it makes suddenly. You are watching something that you can say, "Oh, this is strange." And I remember the first comments I heard the first time he sang. But although it's strange, suddenly it's something that grows on you.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking last week about one of the good things about our Catholic heritage is what is strange, what is awkward, what is sometimes even uncomfortable. In Portugal has more room to grow.
Yes.
So it's never about first impressions.
Right.
It's always about trying to go deeper and trying to look out and discover some hidden meaning that you are not.
And I think that makes it somewhat magical, don't you think?
Yes, because when you win, it in a way I don't know. I don't want to over how would you say, make a lot of theology out of this. I don't want to make a lot of theology out of this, but in a way, I would say that our victories, in a way, they are always small, unexpected, but you were here when we won the Euro Cup. You were here so this last weekend. It really makes you feel good because it's something that you really feel it came out of God's grace. In a way, it came out of God's grace. You were not expecting that.
Yeah. So let's talk about Salvador. I mean, this just in his young 20s, I'm guessing.
Yes, right? I believe. I believe. I don't know the guy.
Yeah,
I don't know the guy.
Maybe we should invite him to the podcast.
Yeah, I thought about that. And
I think we should.
Yeah. We are going to try
to
get Salvador here because he knows how to talk in English.
He can do it really well. And so and I think what I loved about Salvador and his performance is at the end he was so unassuming. Even in the midst of the winning and the success, there he is cheering on is it his sister?
Yeah, it's his,
because she wrote the song.
Yeah, Eloisa.
There's just something really beautiful about the. I don't know if it's the Portuguese soul or just, like you said, in the midst of the winning, in the midst of the success, there was still this, maybe a humility and just being in awe of what was happening. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yes. I believe it has a lot to do with the fact that Portugal is a small country. And when you come from a small country, even if that small country you come from made great things during the past, but you are still coming out of a small country. So there's, I would say, even childish in a good way, but there's a childish ability for you to be in awe with everything that's big. And I think you could spot that during the last time they sang, because they sang together.
They sang together at the final.
And there's even when I'm thinking about Portuguese winners, recent Portuguese winners like Cristiano Ronaldo and José Mourinho. Cristiano Ronaldo, sometimes people mistake his bravado with arrogance, and I'm a Cristiano Ronaldo guy, so although he can be, I'm not defending everything he does, definitely, but what I love.
Oh, you're American now.
What I love about Cristiano Ronaldo is that I can. He's a poor kid. His bravado is completely born out of his. He's a poor kid.
His circumstances, his life.
And
absolutely.
So even when he tries to be big and proud, you have to understand where he's coming from. And that's why I can forgive so easily Cristiano Ronaldo, even when he makes some mistakes. Because it belongs to my small country,
Right.
and I,
Right.
although I spend a lot of time saying bad things about my
Yeah.
small country, it's
Yeah.
my small country.
Yeah. I love how, and we've noticed this here, and maybe I said this already, but I love how Portuguese people will quick to criticize their own country among Portuguese.
Yes.
But the minute a foreigner comes in, oh,
You
you
shouldn't.
don't dare criticize my country, because
It's our
if you do,
family, yeah.
it's right. It's like you don't talk about the family that
Yeah.
way, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's just like you're saying, because even I can spend a lot of time talking to my. I have two sisters,
Mm-hmm.
Ruth and Sarah, and we could spend a lot of time talking about our mom and dad's mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
But if suddenly you came to the
Exactly.
conversation and started trying to
Yeah.
join, man, you're
Yeah.
not.
It's
Go
not going to
away.
end well.
Yeah. Go away. I don't know. Is it the same thing for the American people?
I would say, in some extent, this probably is something that every culture has embedded in itself, is that natural defense
Yes.
of their own self, of their culture, of their family, and so I think that's interesting to note that I think here perhaps even more, because like you were saying, being a smaller country, maybe it comes out even stronger in that sense. Whereas somebody maybe in the American culture, if somebody said, "Oh, we don't like this," they'd say, "What do I care?" You quickly to dismiss it because you don't know anything.
Yes.
But here it's much more of a we have to defend what's ours.
Although I'm always surprised by the way that American people they have a easier time uh, connecting with their country in terms, at least I'm thinking about showing some love.
Right.
And
Patriotism.
yes, and
Right.
if you would have to put in just one reason some good things about your country, what would you say?
Oui. Thanks.
Yes,
I would
you
say,
spoke a very Portuguese. Oui.
Oui. Oh wow. I would say the United States is this huge, massive country, and so there's so much going on at the same time. Whether you live in the north or the south, the east or the west, or the central part of the country, I mean, you almost have the feeling that living in New York, you could live in a different world than somebody from the Midwest or somebody from Texas, for example. But I think the one fascinating thing that kind of connects the United States together is maybe along the lines of that patriotism that we understand, that there's something to the way the United States came to be. The idea that we are completely free, and because of that, we can do anything. There's something that unites a people around that common vision, that common idea, and that just makes it a very attractive place. Whether you're a business person, because you feel I can start a business and do whatever I want, or whether you're starting out as a young college student and the world's in front of you, the world's at your doorstep. That's very American. So I think that's, in one sense, it's a very attractive quality because it generates this idea that we can achieve anything. And now, of course, there's issues that come with that. I think one of the major problems with that is that the idealization of the American dream. And so, what is the American dream? Is that real? Is that true? What people think the American dream is, and what they pursue the American dream to be, is a false reality, I think. But still, at the end of the day, there's that optimism.
Yes, because you act accordingly. And I would say that talking about American dream, at least you act accordingly to that. As a Portuguese, we don't have that kind of. We don't idealize any particular aspect of our Portuguese identity. I guess comparing.
Right.
And that's why suddenly we don't have the ability to act accordingly anything in particular, and that's why our ability to proceed, uh, it, that's why it gets things always more tragic when something happens. Remember when we were talking with Jacinto, you asked how he got published in in the United States, and said, "Oh, it was an accident."
Yeah.
For us, good things in your life. Because we are humble, they were not born out of our work or our willingness
it accidentally happened.
Yeah, they are accidents. And in a way, thinking even about Salvador Sobral and Luisa and this song, we perceive the beautiful thing about winning the festival. In a way, it's a beautiful accident.
Interesting. Yeah. So that would be more of in line with my question. Understanding that maybe that's how the Portuguese think. Does winning change the cultural narrative of the people? Winning the Euro and then winning this festival, does it change anything in the minds of the Portuguese? Are they more open to things being a different way now?
I guess that if for some reason we would spend 10 years winning lots of things, yes, because we are all about we believe that God created a reality. So when things happen in a certain way, we change because of that. So and I believe that Portuguese people would change if suddenly we were winning lots of things. So in my generation, it's funny because in a way I spent my childhood watching the song festival, Euro Song Festival, Festival da Canção, and it was kind of a general rule, a kind of unwritten law that you, of course, you would go there. Portugal would sing,
go.
But when Dulce Pontes, more than 20 years ago, I think, she got a 7th place.
And that was the highest.
Yeah, and that was great.
Wow.
Dulce Pontes got the 7th place. So for my kids, probably it's going to be different. They were born in a Portugal that won. They can remember the first time we won, and they didn't have to expect so much like I did to win. And I guess this changes the country. It can change.
I absolutely think so. And I think what's fascinating is like when a country the size of the United States wins something, it's maybe expected. It's a big country. I mean, it's over 320 million now. I mean, it's a massive country. Produces so much in terms of just people and the abilities and all that they can do. But what's fascinating, even more than that to me, is Portugal, a country of what, 10.5 million?
Yeah, I think we don't get to the 11.
But yet Portugal's on the world stage in a lot of different ways. And that to me is even more amazing because out of something very small, Portugal then all of a sudden is speaking in such a way on the world stage that it can change things. And we've even talked about that just in our profession and what we do. In that out of our smallness, we can have big things to say, not only to the rest of Europe, but maybe to the world as well. And I think that's interesting to me is maybe that's something that Portugal, it's always been a trait along the years in the history of Portugal, as we see how such a small country influenced the entire world, which I think is fascinating.
Yes, and probably it's not easy for us to acknowledge that because during the 20th century, if you say something that looks like you're enjoying your country too much, you got this kind of Nazi ghost about nationalism. And so it's never easy in Europe to feel happy about your country because it looks suspicious. And in this crazy mix with the fact that Portugal didn't win anything, and in a way it's good for you not to be proud of your country, but suddenly I think, and this is not a political commentary, but with all the things happening around Europe with Brexit and
Hmm.
France, uh, probably we are getting to a place that we weren't expecting to get, where suddenly we are more prone to believe in some kind of national unity
Hmm.
that we were supposed to. And I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing.
Right, right.
I really believe that God enjoyed
Mm.
creating different people
Yeah,
from different cultures. So uh, enjoying your particular country, your particular culture, and your
yeah.
particular country is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right, right.
And really, you can understand that, Mark. I enjoy being a Portuguese
Yeah,
guy. I
yeah,
really enjoy that.
yeah,
I don't want to be proud because of
yeah,
that, but and you know, probably it's because we are getting
yeah,
to our 40s. But
yeah.
uh, when I was, we didn't turn on the TV during this last weekend, so we never saw
Mhm.
live when things were happening, not even with the Pope or Benfica or with Salvador.
Yeah,
But when I was watching the day after, yes, there's something that I don't know. I sense some. There's something that touches something deep inside
yeah,
of me when I
absolutely.
was listening to Salvador.
Yeah.
Uh, I can feel proud because of him,
Mm.
and I should not be ashamed because of that. I think.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, we're trying to be Portuguese,
Yes.
and so that's important to say. But we
Yes.
were screaming and saying, "Yeah, go Salvador, go Salvador! We're gonna win! We're gonna win!" So
And you were true believers.
we were, yeah, yeah. I think my wife more than I was,
Really?
because I had read a couple of articles, and I maybe I'm more like you
Yeah.
now. You're
So
influencing
you,
me.
yeah, yeah.
I was more maybe I wasn't as confident, let's say, as Hannah was. And so I had read some articles that maybe Italy was going to be the song that everybody wanted to hear. And so, but Hannah, from the very beginning, no, we're going to win. Salvador is going to win. This is our year.
Yes.
So
No, and we have to get Salvador here. Yeah, we have to get Salvador
absolutely,
here, because I think his probably I shouldn't say this publicly, but I think his sister Luisa,
mm.
I think she lives nearby, and
Oh,
so
fantastic!
yeah,
Let's just go
we
knock
have
on
to
her door.
get a way to
Yeah,
get in touch with him and ask him to come here and tell a little bit about his experience.
yeah, because I actually want to ask him a question.
Yes.
Well, I want to
Yeah.
ask him about the song, and I want to ask him just about his experience. I'd love to, just hear from him, what this was like, this experience of going to Eurovision stuff. But I wanted to ask him about the phrase that he said at the very end. And how would you translate that phrase where he says "tudo está cumprido"? Or what was it?
He said that I didn't
Didn't he?
know. He
He
said
said it
that.
was kind of
Yeah.
like everything was
Did he say?
bought, or what was?
I don't know. Yeah, we have to check that out
Okay, let's
because
check that out. I want to ask him, like, what was he meaning by
yeah,
that?
I didn't know that. I didn't know. I knew that he said some things while before
Hmm.
beginning to sing the song the
Yeah,
last time, but I didn't know that.
yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah,
Kind of like
if
it was supposed to be fixed, but we won anyway. Is that Portuguese? Is that like toma lá? Like
yeah, if you have to translate
how do you translate toma
toma
lá?
lá, or I even prefer vai buscar.
Vai buscar?
Yeah, because if you have to translate vai buscar, it's go and fetch.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love to say vai buscar. It's
When do you say vai buscar?
yeah,
With
yeah.
with anything?
In a situation like that, if for some reason you were expecting that things were framed or to go
Right.
in a particular direction, and if you could win over that, you could say vai buscar.
Okay.
And sometimes even among friends, if you are among musicians,
Yeah.
you sing your song, and then and people loved your song, and so your friend comes next and is
Yeah.
going to sing a song, and you can say in a friendly but at the same time, vai buscar, come and
Yeah.
make better. How would
Yeah.
you say? Come and make better. How would you say?
Oh, what would we use?
Try to top this. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to top this. I do know, like when somebody goes on stage, we always say break a leg,
Yeah, but
but that's
that,
different. That's
yeah,
very different. That's
yeah.
almost like good luck.
Yes, yes. Now, no, vai buscar. It's about, yeah, go and make
Yeah,
make
top
a
it,
better
yeah,
thing
yeah.
than I did.
It's almost like a challenge though. Like try to top
Yes.
this.
Yes.
Like good luck.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I love it.
But yeah, because it's funny because it's not that. And even now in our sense of humor in Portugal, and we have to keep to keep a program to only to talk about Portuguese sense of humor,
Yes.
because our
Yes.
sense of humor, it's in a way,
Yeah.
that in a
Yeah.
way, when you come from a small country not
Yeah.
used to win, you can make fun of people. In your country, you cannot make
And it seems
the
more
same way.
cynical. Would you
Yes,
say it's more
yeah,
cynical?
yes.
Yeah.
You can make fun of people, and that's not seen as so rude as it would be in the United States.
Right.
So, and this is a good thing. There's a way of making fun of things in Portuguese people and in Latin people, because when I was in New York 2 months ago, I was with Xavi. He comes from Barcelona, and I was with some Brazilian friends, Rodrigo, and we would make fun of people from Northern Europe and in the
Yeah.
US in a very particular way.
Yeah. Well,
And it was not
give me
about.
an example.
No, I'm trying to remember, but it's not so much about you having. How would you say when you make the final? You have an expression to that when you get to the point of the joke, when you say the funny thing, that has a name.
I don't know.
I'm not remembering. We are not so much about
The punchline.
The punchline.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
We, of course, right now, because we live in a globalized world, we know how to imitate American punchlines. But we are not so much about punchline, because punchline, in a way, it's a more intelligence-oriented kind of way of making, of being funny. For us, it's not necessarily so much about a punchline, but a predisposition to have a good time. And so you can say things that comparatively speaking are not that funny, but because you're in this particular mood of having a good time, it's not so much about the punchline, it's about you it's about the mood. So that's why you can make fun of people, because the point is not the punchline. It's not about I'm making fun of you.
Right.
It's about your disposition.
I think that maybe is such a fascinating area to explore between the two cultures, is that here it seems that the experience is much more appreciated, the process.
Yes.
There's just something to the process. And so, I mean, I can see it in so many different ways in this culture. Like, for instance, eating a meal at the table, or like we just went to lunch. It's not necessarily, and the American way would be to eat the lunch as rapidly as possible, I mean, as fast as possible, because it's utilitarian. It's you have to eat food so you can keep doing your work.
Yes.
But I love the idea of I mean, we walked through the streets of Lisbon. We took our time getting there. We sit down, we enjoy the meal, we talk, we get dessert, we get our coffee. There's something about the process that's valued here that I don't find in Northern Europe, and I don't find in American culture.
Yeah, I would say that it's more product oriented in America, which is a good thing for us, because we need some work done. Yes, yes, you're right about that. But but in a way, we slow down things. We are a very slow down culture in a way.
But I think that's what's so charming about this culture, is that they don't rush things.
Yes.
In that sense, there are good things that can't be rushed.
Yes.
And that, to me, and certainly there's some elements where the Portuguese culture could benefit from.
Should.
Right. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, when I look at the American system, it's dominated by the watch, and so everything is done by how fast you can do it, or what you can get accomplished, or what the next thing is on the agenda. And so you get trapped by that. You get there's no out.
Yes.
And so you almost can't enjoy not only what God has created, but then the relationships as well.
Yes.
The food and the relationships and all that goes into what that means.
And that's why we need, and in a more Catholic culture, contemplating is yeah, it's something that we can really appreciate.
Right.
Because, and in a way, I would say people need to just contemplate, also contemplate, and not only making things and getting things done. Of course, in Portugal, we really need to get some things done, but yeah, it's the ability for you to just wander, because there's a wandering aspect of our Christian pilgrimage.
Right.
You have to wander also, and sometimes you don't know where you are going at.
I think that's, speaking of like our Christian culture, I think that's one of the hard things about American Christianity, is that I think American Christianity just, and I know I'm speaking in, like you like to say, in general terms. So I don't want to put everything in the same basket, but it seems to me that American Christianity is always looking for a shortcut. Do you see what I'm saying?
It makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe here we embrace the difficult road.
Yes.
As Europeans, maybe as Portuguese, we know that, listen, this is going to be tough.
Yes.
This is going to be hard.
Yes.
So let's go and let's do this.
Yes.
And I like, maybe it's a fatalism that comes from the European mindset or whatever, but there's something maybe inherently Christian in that as well.
Yes. Yes. Because in a way, you're not depending so much on your ability to plan what's coming ahead, or what's going to happen. Yeah. And in a way, when you work hard, you're trusting God.
Sure.
And this is a great thing about American people, about Northern Europe people. You're trusting God because you are trusting that God called you to do something.
Right.
And we need that. In Portugal, we really need that. But it's also true that when you don't plan that much, you can, in a way, you can be trusting God also. That is going to help. So I'm not so sure of my own ability to predict what's going to happen. And in Portugal, you can sense that. That's why, in a way, we can, at least I hope we can sound more humble sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And we can be enjoying a victory like the ones Salvador had, and what a great surprise! What a great accident!
Yes,
what a great
accident! Maybe that's what he was meaning when he was saying it was
probably
what a great accident that just happened. Do you know what that means though? It means that next year Eurovision is going to be here in Portugal, in Lisbon, probably.
Oh,
yeah, because when you win, it goes to your city, or it goes to your country, I would say.
Yes, yes.
And I've heard that it's going to be in Mayo Arena here in Lisbon.
Oh, so it's going to be huge, probably.
Hannah wants to get tickets.
She's planning ahead, yes.
I don't. I would much prefer to stay home than to go to a concert.
But it's so funny, just to say this last thing, but it's so funny because for me, the Song Festival was already dead since the early 90s.
Yeah.
And suddenly it looks like it's legit again to be watching it's funny. It's so funny.
But I think that's what's funny about Eurovision. I think for a lot of years it became almost a joke.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
For serious performers and serious artists, it was just kind of one of those things where you look at some of the acts, you look at some of the songs, and you think, what is this? This is...
And it looked like a freak show sometimes.
Right.
Really,
it really did. And so it became one of those things where I think people liked it because of its oddity. It was weird.
Yeah.
and I'm not saying Eurovision has changed. I think it's still weird.
Yes, it's still.
In fact,
I didn't watch.
My favorite acts are the weird ones. Like, I don't know why. It's
Salvador also won because he can be labeled as a weird act also.
Yeah, there's a little
which
bit,
is not necessarily a bad thing.
But I think in the sense he embraced his weirdness, and that's what endeared people to vote for him and like him and enjoy what he was producing. I think there's also an element of an authenticity there that was lacking in a lot of the other ones.
Yes.
But I confess I'm very drawn to the weird songs. There was one. Let me explain this to you, and I know people that are listening. They watched it. So one guy, and maybe it's from Croatia. I can't exactly remember. but he had a suit, which one side was a leather jacket and one side was a suit. And so when he turned, he would sing in a different way.
Really?
So one was more opera-like, and the other one was more like rock or pop. And so every time he turned, it would be a different, yeah. So he would say my friend was what came. So he would turn and go, my friend, and then he would turn and goes, my friend. So it was so odd, but I loved it.
Now I'm going to. I must check that out. I must check that out.
It's so odd that I love it, but I think obviously, odd doesn't always win.
Yes.
In the sense of I think the quality of the song that was written and then performed by Salvador, I think that just it captivated everybody.
Yes.
And I think that was the genius
You're right.
of the song and the choice and everything.
You're right. And talking about odd stuff, odd things happening, please join us, visit us in our services. They can be odd in a good way.
Yeah, weird in a good way. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we embrace that.
Yes.
In the midst of a Catholic culture, we have an evangelical community that has embraced its oddity within this this place that we find ourselves.
Yes.
And I think that is definitely biblical.
Yeah.
I think God's people have always found themselves a little bit strange in the midst of what we would call a foreign place.
Yes.
And so
in strange situations and in times that sometimes you don't even know who you are, where you're getting at, and that's probably when we are more open to see God's grace happening in our lives.
Yeah.
And we join every Sunday. When do we join, Mark?
11:30 on
11:30.
Sunday morning.
And we have an English translation during the morning service.
We do, yeah. So
but our focus, please tell us more about